الحمد لله رب العالمين نستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به عز وجل ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. We begin by giving all praises to Allah. The praises are due to Allah, the definitive praise, alhamd. The definitive praise is the property of Allah. It is due to Allah. And He is the guardian, evolver, the keeper, the sustainer of all systems of knowledge. Allah has created everything within envelopes of information available, especially to His human creature, His earthly creature, represented by one whom Allah calls in the Quran Rahmatul lil Alameen, and also Rahmatul lil Nas, a mercy to all mankind as well as a mercy to all systems of knowledge, to all worlds. Whatever information is to be found in other planetary existences and other spheres, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his example bestowed upon him, given to him as a mission to display, is also an example to those worlds. And I know that's hard to fathom, sitting here on green planet Earth, blue water Earth, but Allah has schemes and plans and future kinds of existences that most people on Earth are not yet aware of. In fact, if you listen to the nature channels, they're telling you almost on a daily basis that they're finding creatures just kind of appearing out of nowhere that they've never seen before on Earth. Yeah, underwater, 6 miles under, 10 miles under, birds, species, insects, sharks, all kinds of creatures that NASA and the rest of these people who study this kind of phenomenon have never witnessed before. Planet Earth is going through some serious changes, and everything that is a part of the Earth are due to go through similar changes. And I believe last time I checked that the human being was a part of this planet Earth. So get ready for the ride. We say the praises be to Allah. He is due the praises for all of the things that we see in our human environment, in the world's environment, in the planetary environment, in the environment of even the cosmos. Everything that we see that touches our hearts, that captures our imagination and brings warm feelings to the soul, to the emotionality, that causes us, every time we see a thing of beauty, every time we see a thing of just pure magnificence is the only way you can describe many of the things that we come across in this life, visually. All of those things that cause the heart to feel blessed, to feel appreciative, all of that is wrapped up in that term, hamd. It's wrapped up in the term hamd. So we could be looking at the magnificence of a wonderful sunrise or the beauty of a magnificent sunset. We could be acknowledging the benefits that we get from the flow of warm air on the beachfront, or wherever we might experience that kind of beautiful and peaceful existence, and we ourselves might not realize what the source of that benefit is. We might not realize that there is a supreme benefactor responsible for every single inkling of good feelings that we have about anything that we experience by way of these five senses. Whether we recognize that it is Allah or not, He is still due the praise. Alhamd is not a praise that does not exist if the human being doesn't recognize it. If a human being doesn't say thank you to another human being, that appreciation is not recognized. But whether you say thank you to Allah or not, Allah Himself commands that praise as his personal property. He regulates that praise as his perfect property. And if the human intellect does not acknowledge it consciously, Allah says that all creatures acknowledge his praise and his glory. Huh? All creatures say, Subhanallah. The angels, the mountains, the elements. So it doesn't depend on human acknowledgement. The hamd. That's how beautiful that hamd is. So we're here to talk about the nature of that warmth in the form of family relationships. The theme for today, inshallah, is reverencing or respecting the family ties, as Allah asks us to do in Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4 of the Quran, of which we will begin to read, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We're going to take what's the word? Advantage. That's a good word. We're going to take good advantage of the time that we're going to be spending here this weekend. I pray to Allah that those of you who are free to do so, that you join us for tonight's teaching session. I believe it begins at 6. And also tomorrow's events, which begin in the morning at, I believe we're beginning at 9 a.m. tomorrow until 3 p.m. And also there's a banquet tomorrow evening. We'll talk about these things again at the end of the khutbah. And there is also a Sunday ta'aleem that you're going to want to be a part of. The entire theme for this weekend is built around the concept of education. Education. So if you have any interest whatsoever in what education is fundamentally, and by fundamentally I mean according to Allah's fitrah. There's the education that you get in the world or from the world, and then there is the education that you get from Allah's fitrah. The first education is fitrah-based, or should be fitrah-based education. If you have any desire to see the improvement of our children's activities and our children's interests and our children's minds grow, if you want to see those minds grow, well, we have techniques that we're going to introduce to you throughout the course of this weekend that are supportive of that native growth for their intellect and also for our intellects as adults. We have plastic brains that continue to grow and expand just like the universe, inshallah. So Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'm going to read it in English and just reference the Arabic words as necessary to save time, number one. And number two, most of us are not fluent speakers of Arabic, and we could serve time better by going straight to what it is we're used to and what it is we know, and that is the English language, a very powerful language in the family of languages, the English language. This is, pardon me, the translation by Yusuf Ali, the Islamic scholar, the Arabic scholar, Yusuf Ali. May Allah forgive him any sins in his transmission or translation of the Quran from Arabic into English, and may he bless all of the good based on this rendering, this English rendering. May he bless Yusuf Ali with the fruits of all of that good that he has caused for thousands and I guess millions of people by now. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, as we continue. O mankind, reverence your guardian Lord, who created you from a single person, created of like nature his mate, and from them twain, scattered like seeds, countless men and women. Fear Allah, through whom you demand your mutual rights, and reverence the wombs that bore you, for Allah ever watches over you. Now there are some problems in all translations, but we want to be able to pick out those words and those phrases in Arabic that we want as the main focus for this khutbah today, inshallah. The main idea in speaking about the wombs that bore you, to respect the wombs that bore you, another translation says to respect or reverence the family ties. family ties. And both the words family and the words wombs are indicated in the Arabic term arham, which is the plural word for womb. It means wombs, places of development, places of growth, places where if the correct environment is present, it's going to bring about the proper fitra growth and development that the human being or any creature that is born out of a womb needs for their survival and their success. So arham is a word that is based on the root word rahima. And rahima is also where we get the word that all of us recognize, rahma. Rahma. We speak about Allah's rahma, which is translated into English as mercy. Mercy. But mercy by way of what avenue is the question. I'm one who, when I investigate the Arabic language and I look for definitions in the dictionary, I don't stop at a definition if it represents an effect. I keep digging until Allah blesses me to find the causative agent responsible for the effect. So mercy is an effect. If I'm showing mercy, it is actually the effect of something. It is because I see something in that creature, or I see something in that relationship, or I see something in that trouble that requires that I step in and provide mercy. Mercy is a free gift. You don't pay for that. If I'm being merciful to my family members, it's not because I'm being paid. I get rewards for it by the grace of Allah, but I don't go into it looking for rewards. I go into it just for the sheer pleasure of Allah and hoping that Allah would shine some of that mercy back on me. Alhamdulillah. Now, in the word rahimah, understand also, for those of you who have not heard me give any attention to where words come from, I don't like to call it a theory because it's more than a theory. But for lack of a better term right now, we'll call it a theory. My theory is that the Arabic language, and I actually believe all languages, but we're focused on the Arabic because they talk about the triliteral roots in the Arabic language. When you go into the Arabic dictionary, you look for triliteral or three root consonants, such as rahama, which gives you mercy. Rahima, rahama gives you mercy. I don't believe Arabic began as a triliteral language. I believe it began as a biliteral language. Why? Because all things begin small and grow to be what it is they are. Just like a $50 word in English. Inconsequential, whatever word you choose, intelligence. They're just really contractions of several smaller words. So every word, every concept begins as a small concept and grows to be a larger concept. Because of this, I look at the word rahima, and I'm believing that it originally was not rahima, that it originally was just ham. The heavy H and the meme, the ha and the meme, and that in time the letter ra was added to the beginning of it to make it rahima or rahama, which gives us rahma. Why do I believe that? Now pay very careful attention to this in the amount of time that we have. Ham is a word that is an Arabic word also. And many people have failed to make the connection because of the way we're taught. We're not taught to look for connections. We have been under the auspices of an educational idea in the West especially, but it has become pervasive throughout the world, that people seeking education, people seeking knowledge, people seeking information have been unconsciously swayed by the techniques inherent in what is called left-brained teaching. See, if we're going to progress along with the world, we have to become more scientifically oriented and sophisticated. The educational system that we're experiencing, again, particularly here in the West, was built upon people whose ideologies were developed consciously developed based on left-brained attention. And the left brain, according to the sciences, is that part of the brain that is more linear What it does is that it takes information and it separates it into compartments. So it will take the alphabet, for instance, and separate it into its various letters. It will take ideas and begin to break those ideas down or break those ideas apart so that you can look at each individual component. However, if that is your main focus, you're going to lose your grip on the holistic idea in that knowledge. So the world is beginning to move now back into the area of holistic ideas, holistic thinking, which is a right brain phenomenon according to this same science. People who study the brain, who study the intellect, they say that the right side of the brain is the brain that has the greatest amount of connection to what we would call, in the Islamic world of sciences, tawheed. Tawheed, wholeness. And it is actually the kind of thinking that the human being is born with. When children of a young age play in the play yard, in the schoolyard with other children, they don't see race. They don't see that this young brother here is from Pakistan, or my friend, he's 5 years old, he's from Sweden. They don't have that kind of acknowledgement. They only see children. And they begin to play with each other as children until parents who have developed a warped idea about human and social relationships begin to teach them racism. Don't play with that boy, you know, he's white. You can't play with them white boys. And don't play with those white girls. You're going to get in trouble. And you know the word in the opposite direction. Don't play with those, you know. They're from a different, they're different. In fact, they're not even as good as we are. Does that sound familiar? I am better than he. See, that's where all of that originates. It's a part of the conditioning that we have accepted and allowed to enter our intellectual atmosphere and cripple us as Iblis said he would do. And he pointed out 4 directions, didn't he? I will come from before them. I will come from behind them. I will come from their right. And I will come from their left. And by the time I'm finished with them, there will be very few of them who will acknowledge you, my Rob. and who will be grateful to you. There will be very few left in that pool of people who I'm going to influence on the intellectual level. I'm going to study their brains and I'm going to encapsulate them. Right here. And I'll be all the way back there where they can't see me. And then sometimes I'll be right in their faces. See, that's before you and behind you also. I'll be right there championing their strength. That's your right side. And I'll also be over there on their left side promoting their weaknesses. And I tell you, my Lord, you're making a mistake by choosing this guy, this fresh clay, this creature subject to manipulation of the hands, you know, clay, subject to manipulation, subject to be impressed by anything that gets close to it. That's clay. Subject to be left, for fingerprints of this world to be left on his imagination. The fingerprints of this world. And Allah said, bow down anyway. Make says that anyway. And Allah sent the message by way of the angels. He said, I know that which you don't know. Literally saying, I have ilm. This is what Allah, that you don't possess. And ilm is not just knowledge. Ilm is science. He said, I know the science of this creature that I'm bringing into existence as my Khalifa. Don't you worry about how. All you have to do is do what I told you to do. Because what you're not realizing is that the world is not who I am charging to be the potter for this clay. I am charging myself with this duty to be the potter for this clay, this thing. See, this world would rather have you think that Harry is the potter. But Allah is saying, no, I am the potter. And when I touch this creature with my influence, it's going to be a different world. We're living in that change right now. We're living in the day when that promise or that allowance that was made to Iblis, that time is almost up. Oh, what a wonderful day and time we're living in. They say, Imam, why are you always glowing? I'm glowing because of what I'm knowing. And if you knew what I knew, you would be also showing your gratitude. Not that moping, oh, end of the world, sky is falling, Chicken Little. Now, we don't need any Chicken Little Muslims. There's no Chicken Little that's halal. Not for us. So we're talking about the family ties, the importance of those family ties, and in the English term, family, we have a relationship with the English word familiar. Family means to be familiar. And in order to be familiar, you have to be in close contact, close proximity to the thing or to the people that you are seeking a familiarity with. Huh? Beautiful connections in those two words. And I have to keep reminding my audiences that when you see these kinds of sophisticated ideas in language, more than likely, I could almost say 100% of the time, in these cases, the wisdom that accounts for the longevity in those meanings and the ability of these words to create minds, to create intellects, to create hearts that have stayed the test of time. That wisdom has come at some point from Allah's revelation. Even in these other languages. These other languages are traced back to the languages that Allah revealed His revelation in, particularly the sacred Quran. Well, how come Professor George whoever didn't tell us about that? I took an Islamic studies course, and he didn't tell me about that. He didn't know about that. And the reason he didn't know about that is because his teachers didn't teach him that. And his teachers didn't teach him that. If they knew it, they didn't want that much. That's what the young brothers on the street would say, TMI. Too much information. And for others, the link was severed, which goes back to my original point. The educational focus for this world has been left-brained, which means that they gave every system of knowledge that they presented in piecemeal form. What the wise ones among them call analyzation. So your Sigmund Freuds, I didn't say Freud. I said your Sigmund Freuds, and Freud is not even his original name. You see, you got to study these people. Freud is not his original name. Freud is his title. The man who invented the Ford automobile. If you trace his history, you'll find out that Ford was not his original name either. If you trace the history of the one in our development called W.D. Fodder, Fodder is just Ford in another language. Fraud and Freud is just Ford and Fodder in different languages. They are all titles, they're not names. Oh, what a wonderful weekend we're about to have. Yeah. And what it literally means is port or door that you need to walk through in order to get to the other side of information. You have to come through us now to get what it is. And in fact, W.D. Farad, as an aside, told us that we were a baby nation. He said that because he was in the process of giving birth to the African-American true Muslim in his mind. So you have to come through this port, through this womb. Reverence the wombs that bore you. For it is Allah, not W.D. Farad, who is ever watching over you. Allah will use whomsoever He will for His scheme. You are not the one to sit at the table with Allah and tell Him, oh, Allah, only use this scheme. Only use these people. Only use people from this country who speak this language. We are not in a position to ask Allah or to demand from Allah that He use our methods of bringing about His divine scheme. You have to be astute enough. You have to be careful enough in your approach to learning. And you have to have a good enough heart to be blessed by Allah to see the differentiation in the development towards the scheme, the good scheme that Allah is bringing about for this earth. You know those automatically who know it and who see it because their faces are radiant as Allah said they would be. Their faces will emit light. And you know the ones who have been severed from that understanding because when you look at them, they always have something negative to say. Yes. Negative to say. Did I say negative? I meant negative to say. So the term for wombs is arham. And again, believing that arham came from a root word, hamma, or ham. Ham means warm. You will not find that in the Arabic dictionary. They didn't trace it far enough. But ham means warm in all of these Semitic languages. In some cases, it will say, as it does in the Arabic dictionary, Dictionary of the Holy Quran by Abdul Manan Omar, very good dictionary, it will say that ham means, how they translated in the Quran, fetid mud. Fetid means very offensive to the nostrils, very offensive to the sense of smell. Fetid, when you go up to the mud and sniff, you have to get away from it. So they're saying in their translation that Allah is saying that He created this thing, this Adam, alayhi salam, this Khalifa, from that which was offensive to the sense of smell. These are all symbolic and beautiful ways of expressing in just a few words what philosophers would take volumes to explain. Allah gives it to you in just a few words. Yes, it is fetid mud. It is offensive to the sense of smell. But offense to the sense of smell is always a relative thing. Because there are people who live next to garbage dumps and have done so for 10, 15 straight years who no longer register the offensive nature of the garbage dump. And it's you have to come to their home and walk in and, what is that? And they might say, what? Okay? Yeah, there are people who might give off a certain odor, for lack of a better term. And they live with themselves and they don't smell it. It takes you walking by them. Oh, brother. It's the last time you visited the bathhouse. Huh? And we're not saying these things, obviously, to make fun of people. We're talking about the nature and the way Allah created us. So there are people who don't recognize that because that's relative. So yeah, it's fetid mud. The human being is created to be something offensive, but like I said, if it's an effect, trace the cause. The offense is not to those who appreciate true human nature. The offense in Adam's construction is based on the fact that the one who wants to tear him down is offended by him. Yeah, he's the one that's offended by him. What is he offended by? Whatever is creating the smell. What's creating the smell in that human clay? The clay could not get off an odor unless it had been affected by the warmth of the sun. Just like your frozen biscuits cannot be that which gives off an odor unless you put it in the oven and allow the warmth of that oven to bring out that odor. It's the warmth that generates the sense of smells of things. The warmth over the flower bed will bring out the perfumes that those flowers hold. It's the warmth. Now, remember what we said. Ham means warm. By the time the word became rahama and rahima, it meant mercy through what door? The door of warmth. Huh? Because when you are truly merciful with people, they're going to feel your warmth. And the warmth towards them from you is going to do exactly what warmth does all over the planet. It creates growth and productivity. That's how you know when there's real mercy in the room. Because I'm not trying to snatch something away from you. I'm trying to help you. And the greatest help I can bring to you is the help of what Allah gave me in my nature to share with you as a gift that will bring out the production in you. Especially in your intellect. Alhamdulillah. So warmth is actually the central idea in family life. How can you have a family and not be warm towards each other? And that accounts for your individual families, your biological families, and also your extended families. We are an ummah, over 1 billion strong, 1,300,000 strong. How can we not be warm towards each other? And if we are not, then we are lying about the fact that we are an ummah, because ummah means community from the root word that also gives us mama, big mama. Huh? Yeah, that's what the ummi is. She's big mama in my house. That's what she was in my house. Huh? She is the one who taught me my first moral lessons. She is the one who taught me my first skills. She's the one who taught me when to be quiet and when to speak. She's the one who taught me to negotiate my relationship with my siblings when we ran into problems in the home. She's the one who taught me lessons of cleanliness. It was Mama who taught us all of that. And by extension, it's the Ummah that instructs us in all of that by way of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Huh? And I told you once before that the word Sunnah produced the word sun for the Westerners. Sun, S-U-N. So whatever they saw in Muhammad's Sunnah, praise and peace be upon him, what they did was extrapolate the meanings and the attributes from these Quranic terms and from the teachings of the Prophet. And they began to establish these meanings in their Western society, but they did it in a way that once it was established and once it was grounded, they began to erase the tracks to where they got it. That's the only difference between what we do and what they did. We established it, the Muslims established it in history, geometry and all of these different sciences, and they said, I'm Abu such and such, the inventor of this method, or the introducer, the one who introduced this other method. And do you know that the Europeans went behind that and took all of those Arabic names and turned them into Greek names? So that the world would forever think that the Greeks invented all of that? The Muslims didn't hide it, but those who came behind them felt some sort of inferiority complex, I guess, and began to hide the tracks when it wasn't necessary to hide the tracks, because the Quran, as Allah says in the Quran, is a book for all people. So they have as much a right to the Quran and to the wisdom in the Quran as we do who say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They have just as much right. And they know it, and they use that right. Many of them are just waiting for us to wake up and stop saying that the Quran is just our book. If it's just our book, we're in a pitiful situation. The way we've been using it. We've been using it as a kindergarten manual. On the most part, a kindergarten manual. Just like the Christians have been using the average Bible. Everything is literal. Don't expound upon anything. Depend on the interpretations of people who did the work 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Even though you're in the year 2012, don't worry. If a new something pops up and it gives inspiration to the mind to look back into the Quran and say, hey, it's possible Allah could also have meant this. That's going to help advance humanity. They say, no, you kid. No. Bid'ah. I'm not talking about real bid'ah. There's real bid'ah of people who just imagine stuff 2 in the morning and say, I'm going to teach this. And it has no connection to anything that the Prophet taught or that Allah established. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people of real ijtihad. Yes, indeed. Let us take the opportunity for a break here, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim wa barakallahu Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Praise Allah, alhamdulillah. We ask that Allah's pure and perfect guidance be protected for us in this day and time, especially as it was established through the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah preserve the behavioral mode that he bestowed upon Muhammad, so that no matter what is said about our Prophet throughout history, all the way up until the day of judgment, we ask that Allah preserve the integrity of his original message and conduct, and that we feed upon that conduct, that we ask Allah to make clearer and clearer to us what is the method, the mode that Muhammad the Prophet used in order to secure the kind of victory that Allah blessed him with in less than 23 years. Obviously, he understood something about how the ummah was supposed to be constructed. Obviously, he understood something about how family life is supposed to be reverenced. He was a supreme negotiator even before revelation was bestowed upon him. Because the need, the warmth, the love, the concern for humanity was in his heart from birth. We have to register that same kind of heart. We have to register that same kind of love, concern, and mercy for not only each other as people who say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. We have to register that same concern for every life form that comes to us looking at least somewhat like a human being. Now, many of us have been stretched outside of our human form. So sometimes it's hard to recognize the true human being, because they have not been given a true human picture of what a human being is supposed to look like. This world, again, is a world that is based on analysis, not synthesis. Synthesis is just a fancy modern term for tawheed. Looking at the wholeness in the picture and doing that which respects that wholeness. You're not working against the wholeness. If you have to become analytical, you're looking at the pieces to see how you can fine-tune them so that they can contribute better to the whole. This world snatches away the pieces, and they make you focus on the pieces in deference to the whole. So that the whole becomes the ugly thing to be, but the pieces become what's happening. Now, let me see how different I can look. Let me see how way out I can be, because I need that kind of attention. My psyche needs that kind of attention. When I walk down the street, I want to have, you remember the 60s and 70s, you know, dear Don Cornelius just passed. But when you look back at those pictures of Soul Train and the 70s era, we were all saying, basically, as African American people, I'm talking about, let me have not just an afro, not just some hair on my head, I want the biggest head of hair. You see how extreme the mentality was? And we said we were doing that in the name of Africa, but if you went to Africa, travel the whole continent, you won't find anybody with a full-blown afro. But we were in touch with our African self, not realizing that the manipulators of this world were actually using us as satire, as comedy, speaking through the culture, through us, to tell the rest of the intelligent world what we were as a people lacking. So we have to get back to basics. And basics represent that which the family life speaks to. Allah says, reverence, have taqwa, in my last point, for the arham, the wombs, or those spaces that provide the kind of warmth necessary for proper growth and development. That womb is indicated also in this kind of gathering. This is a part of the arham. This Jummah. And anytime we get together and share information and share good feelings and share warmth and share sadaqah with each other, that's also arham. Not just what you find under your roof. Sometimes what's under your roof is as far away from mercy as east is from west. Sometimes we tend to treat people who are not biological relatives of ours better than we treat our relatives who are our biological family. And we give all of this time and all of this love and sometimes all of our money to people outside of the home, and you get home and say, sweetheart, you got $1 to go get a loaf of bread? I ain't got no money. But he just gave money to Sally. And we can talk about why. So these are situations for us that have been turned around so that the intellect, the natural intellect that Allah was creating to be situated in a position to be his Khalifa, so that that plan would be spoiled by the mechanisms of shaitan. So, what am I saying? Whenever you feel the urge to separate yourself from family concerns, whenever you feel the urge in you to separate yourself from masjid concerns, or any other situation that represents family on one level or another. For the Muslims, it's the entire ummah of people of all ethnic groups around the country. I don't use the term races because the racists made the term race up. There's no race, ain't no such thing scientifically as race. They just came back from the Genome Project saying 98% of the genetics on Earth are the same among all human beings, no matter where you find them. So all of this is illusion. This just means that the people in my history were outside more than the people in some of your history. People in your history, it was cold, and they stayed inside. And therefore, this didn't get as dark as what it is when the people are on the equator. And this ain't just an African thing. You go into India, they darker than this. They darker than my black sheep. Some of them. Right? And don't call themselves black people. That's a hint for some of you people who call yourselves black people. When they called us black, they meant your lights are out. You're groping in the dark. You're lacking. You be lacking. Something that the rest of the world has, it was taken from you. So we're going to call you be lack. Yeah? And if you understand the satire, the letter B in the English language also stands for, and I can say this here because we're scientists, right? It stands for your testicles. Yeah, go back and trace the letter B and back into the Greek language, back into the ancient Phoenicians. It was the testicles of the bull that produced your letter B. It's sitting up for us, but it was horizontal for them. So when they call us be lack, what do you think they're saying we're lacking, my brothers? We got to change this ugly situation. And we can. Allah wouldn't give us this information and explain these things through us. Especially like leadership as blessed as Imam W.D. Muhammad. And I go places, if they don't like that, they need to, the earth is spacious. The man was profound in what Allah gave him. And we praise Allah for him and ask Allah's mercy be upon him and that he be found in Firdaus, in Jannah Firdaus, the highest level, up there with the prophets and messengers, because of what he brought to us. Allah wouldn't allow the release of this kind of information and the release of these hints and clues that would lead a little guy like me to find that. That's not something Imam Muhammad told me. I found that because Allah blessed him to instill the kind of urges in me that stimulated my intellect to never turn off. And you have the same thing in you, potential-wise. And this is what is going to save our babies, our children. Because they can sit and listen to me for 8 hours straight. That age group, right there. 10, 12, 15, 17 years old. Why? Because Allah sent us a message and a method for teaching and educating that bypassed all of this world's blocks. All of their schemes to keep us dumbed down. Are you going to create one who will make mischief and shed the blood? All you have to do is know what blood is in Arabic. It's called dam. And it is where the English people, speaking people, derive the English word dumb. D-U-M-B. You notice you don't pronounce the B? Because they hit it like that so you'd never even be curious. But that's the same B in black. Meaning that they're creating a situation for your generation. See? The testicles, you hold your future generations in that package. They're creating a situation where they will be null and void. No expression. And that expression comes through what? The blood. So when they say dumb, they don't mean unintelligent. They mean unable to express themselves. Dumb is just another word for mute. Not stupid. Mute. And they created all of us to be mute. Our children, mute. It's not that they're stupid. They've been muted. And mute is where they go into the Quran and snatch out the term mate. M-A-Y-T. And they get the word mute. And mate means dead. So they say we've been muted, we've been killed. Intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, curiosity-wise. So we have to make a change. Please be here for the duration of this weekend. I'm just giving you drops in the bucket right now because of the time restraint. Please, I'm almost begging you to do what you did what you had to do to be in front of the television for the football game. Now I'm talking outside of this room now. But what I'm telling you is snatch up somebody outside of here and bring them, what, $25, $40 for family? That's not worth your intellect being rekindled, your mind being set back on the track so that you will be in perfect touch with the coming situation for this world that Imam Muhammad called the great elimination if you are not conscious of what's going on. Well, Allah is blessing us to bring information this weekend to thoroughly ignite your senses again in a way that when the opposition begins to show itself, you'll know it immediately and you will have the tenacity that it takes to repel it. Because of what? This book and the wisdom that Allah put in this book, and because of the demonstration of this book by our prophet and Allah's messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So be aware that I can't cover everything I wanted to say in just 1 hour. Impossible. I'd be doing myself and you an injustice. But I am here for the entire weekend. Inshallah, you can play catch up by doing what you need to do at the table out there with the CDs and the DVDs. Yeah, I'm telling you, I feel bad for you when you walk by that table. Not because I'm losing money. Allah will never allow me to lose what He has in store for me. Believe that. I'm on nobody's payroll. I don't work for any college or university. I've never even been to a college or university as a student. Now, if that doesn't tell you something, that dumb thing we were talking about is much more pervasive than I thought. But when they say, going back just to that end, to conclude on that verse, are you going to create one who will make mischief and shed the blood? That is what this world now calls the dumbing down of America. We're talking about America right now. Dumbing down means that your vital life force is being poured out so that it no longer serves your fitra interest. It's something that is now outside of your body, and you know as soon as blood gets outside of your body, it becomes contaminated. That's what they were concerned with. These weren't just some little cherub-looking white figures when we talk about angels. See, that's what I mean by kindergarten. See, you start thinking about Allah's angels, you thinking what the Christians introduced as angels. And you don't realize that the Christians introduced those ideas, those pictures as angels because many of them were so far off their fitrah that they were in love. The men were in love with little boys. And just study what's going on in the world now with that section of the population, and it will speak for itself without me having to mention anything else. But when we think angels, man, we should be thinking lightning and thunder, the winds, all of the things that Allah uses in this marvelous creation to bring about His plan. He said He's always involved in a new creation. They're waking up and they're saying, where did that cluster of stars come from? It wasn't there yesterday. That's the Allah we're talking about. Those are the angels that are working full-time for Allah without stint that we're talking about. And the very fact that the ones I just quoted from the Quran had a question to ask should also tell you that those were not angels as such. Because angels can't question. According to Allah in the Quran, subhanahu wa ta'ala, they can't ask questions. Are you going to create one of it? No, you're not in the position that you don't even have an intellect, angel. So it wasn't an angel questioning. See the beauty of the Quran? Allah used the term malaika to reveal deficiency in people who set themselves up as representatives of God. We are the angels. There are people in religions that say, we don't mix with regular people. We're priests, we're nuns, we're monks. We don't get married. Isn't that the angel mentality? Yeah. We don't have children. We don't want to be responsible for social stuff. We want to dedicate ourselves just to, while we are glorifying you, Allah, and magnifying your name. You see how it's presented in the Quran? Because those were people who thought that the right way to worship God was to give themselves totally to spiritual stuff and neglect the social stuff. See? Neglect the social stuff. They were concerned about the blood. That's the social stuff. Oh boy, we got a long way to go, but we're gonna get there, inshallah. I told a group in Wilmington, Delaware, last weekend when I was there for a 3-day weekend. I said I'm beginning to see that part of my role is to help transform the jackass into a thoroughbred. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And that is our guardian Lord and Ibaba. Give us the excellence of this life, give us the excellence of the latter life, and save us from the torment of